going on, guys? It's been a minute. I have not posted on my main channel in quite some time, and it has actually made me feel not great about it. But I am back, and you'll probably notice the backdrop has definitely changed from some of my other tech videos that I've done. There's been quite a few changes with me recently, and I haven't been able to post. I've been out trying to get fish and put together videos of that. Every time I've done it, there's always been some major flaw that's happened with it. So most of the time I've gone out and done fishing videos, it's been really hard for me to continuously get footage that's good to use. I'm still fairly new at it, so nevertheless, we're here now, and let's get into some tackle tips. These are going to be kind of more beginner line. If you're getting into fishing and someone that's brand new, here's some great ways to kind of help direct you in finding what type of gear you need, what type of fishing you're going to be doing, what type of ways to make your time out on the water much more enjoyable. So, starting with tip number one. I am a multi-species angler, meaning that I will fish for salmon, I will fish for bass, I will fish for trout, I'll fish for panfish at times. We even got some crappie up in here. So what that means is I have a lot of different gear to catch different fish. That being said, I can't carry all of that gear in one load. I can't keep all that stuff and move it from salmon to trout to bass to all those. So what I do is I split up my gear into the species that I want to tackle for that day. So if I know I'm going out to the river for salmon, I'm going to take my salmon bag. And each one of those has their own skill set up to help me keep my line in the water at the longest amount possible. And that's something to keep in mind whenever you're thinking about ways to like upgrade your fishing gear. You want to think of ways to keep your line in the water for as long as possible. I don't want to be in my bag searching for some line or a swivel or something of that nature when I could be out fishing and possibly catching that fish that might be casting by. So, like I said, I have multiple different bags. If I'm going to the river for salmon, this whole bag is just dedicated to salmon river fishing. It's got everything that I need in it to fish different areas, but it's also aimed at just that style of fishing. If I'm going for trout, I'm going with my trout bag. And this one is aimed to just trolling in my boat or off the bank, or if I'm going camping and I'm going to a new lake that I know is just going to be stocky trout. That's what this one's aimed for. This thing weighs a ton. This would be my bass bag. And I spend a lot of time thinking of ways to upgrade each one of these to make it more successful for that style that I'm going for. You noticed everything that I own is bags, and that's tip number two. Tip number two is fishing bags. Fishing bags are my best way of keeping my tackle as universal as possible for any type of fishing that I'm doing. Tackle boxes, they're great for when you're in the beginning, but I would say everybody's got a backpack, everybody's got some bag they're not using in their closet or something like that. Dedicate that to your tackle bag, because what ends up happening is as you gather stuff through the way, those tackle boxes sometimes don't fit the line that you have, or you might want to put your spool in there, or you need water for the day because you're on the river. Something of that nature. Backpacks seem to always carry all those items that you need in the most universal way. For example, my river bag here, okay? This one here I found online for about 25 bucks. That's it, 25 bucks. And the reason why I picked this bag in particular is because I live in the Pacific Northwest. It rains here, it gets wet, and everything in my tackle bag I don't want to get wet. So these ones here are completely waterproof type bags. They roll top, and they're basically one just big cylinder is what they are. There's no real pockets or anything like that, which is okay for what I do. In here, I'm able to keep multiple things. I got scents. I've got a bag full of just floats. That's all that's filled with those. And I've got tons and tons of tackle actual boxes in there. I hope you can see that. Tackle boxes in there. I got about 5 or 6 in here for just that occasion. And like I said, I split everything up to keep myself with my line in my water for as long as I can. So this bag here or this box here, just jigs. That's all it is. It's just a bunch of jigs. And it's in this foam case, so that way I can see every jig. And I know which one I want or which weight I want, and I can immediately just go and grab it and pull it. And we'll get into the salmon stuff later, but this is just an example of ways to keep your tackle in order. Same goes for all these other ones. You can pick these up pretty cheaply online. I will say this, if you're gonna go with the cheap guys, here is a huge thing to think about with these cheaper tackle boxes. See that the way that this locking mechanism is actually in line with the actual tackle box itself. If you're going bag fishing, this is actually a very key thing that nobody thinks about. And I'm gonna grab another box real quick to show you. Okay, so this tackle box here, sorry for getting real loud. This tackle box here is in my back stock because I bought it because most things that you find online, like this one here, is just a cheap tackle box. And I was like, oh, it's nice, got a nice waterproof seal. It's gonna be great, it's 3 locking mechanism. Here's the thing with these 3 locking mechanism ones. Because these are so exposed, and when you're using tackle boxes or tackle bags, these have a real easy tendency to just flip open. Yes, there's 3 of them. As I'm stacking my next one, this can break off, and it's happened to me. And then I get them stuck together, and they're just a pain to work with. So I end up opting for these even cheaper ones online that have these that are in line with the box because A, they're more square, they stack easier than these kind of off-shaped ones, and they all kind of fit together better. These are roughly on this series, which I think is like the 3000 series. These are around 8 inches in wide, which fits in any of these $25, $30 waterproof backpacks lengthways, and you can get about 5 or 6 of them in it. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3. Tip number 3 is pack your tackle for how you fish. Now what I mean by that is not necessarily pack your tackle for the trout or the bass or something like that. I'm saying pack your tackle boxes for the way that you fish. This one here is for my trout box, and this has all the parts and pieces that I need for trolling with trout. It's got my dodgers and it's got my trailers behind it. So I've got quite a few different trailers right there all lined up on foam board. These all have leader on them, so they're hard to keep, and this is the best way that I've found to keep these trailers is on these foam boards, because they can get a little wild on the foam boards, but at least they're in one place and they're easily displayable, and I can just pull them off the line very quickly. And then right beside them, I've got all of my dodgers. So in one look, I can see, yep, green, yellow, red, and I want to find a green or a red or an orange there. That's going to be a good combo with this guy here. Within one look, without going to multiple different tackle boxes to open up for these, then open up for this, it's all here. And let me tell you, if you're looking for a tackle box like this one, again, same line, right? These Gamakatsu bags or Gamakatsu tackle boxes are the most underrated tackle boxes in my opinion. I own 2 of these, and I'm going to be owning much more of these as I kind of filter out some of my cheaper ones. I've got, hold on, going back to my jig box here that I just recently picked up. It's got foam core that's actually glued into it, cane glued into it, that all these jigs kind of sit linear in. But you don't have to use salmon jig. You do whatever you want to do with these. I think it was only like 12 bucks or something like that. And again, nice and square. They're not too crazy shaped. They're all going to line with each other nicely. And most of them are kind of aimed to staying more towards the small side of things, which again is nice for me. And they're really interchangeable when you get into like this tackle box here. Like I have it set up with one line, but it came with a bunch and you can set it up multiple different ways. So, and a bunch of their tackle line is actually really priced nicely, and the way that they are and the way that you can customize them is actually really, really nice. So again, I'll go a whole video about just these tackle boxes alone because I've tried and true a bunch of them, and let me tell you, these things can make or break you when it comes to trying to organize your tackle into some sort of quick fashion. Going back to what I was saying about organizing those tackle boxes for what you do, like I said, I've got the trolling box here. I've got this guy here, which is a binder, which is another version of these tackle boxes that come real big and handy. And I have actually stuffed full this thing with all different styles of gang trolls. And so these binders are nice for these gang trolls because these, again, are notorious for just becoming a wired mess in the bottom of a tackle box. These binders make it easy. These binders don't fit well in tackle boxes, but you know what they do fit well in? Tackle bags. So again, another version of packing the way that you fish. Makes it very easy for me to see each one of them. It makes it very easy for me to make my choice right out of the gate. So now, that being said, everything that I've said so far is just about storing your tackle, not necessarily about the tackle itself. So I kind of want to get into that a little bit, but I'm not going to really touch base on that. This video is more or less of storing and best ways of keeping yourself active on the water. Next time I can kind of get into a little bit more of the details of what's in each tackle box and why it's in there and why it has a home in my tackle box and why I use it most frequently. So for now, we're just going to stay on the surface level to kind of give a brief overview of everything, and then I can kind of break it down even more. So, all right, so then the next thing I want to hit on, which would be tip number 4. Tip number 4 is categorize and purge. And this can be hard for a lot of us, especially myself, is you need to categorize all of your gear into what it is that we're fishing for, aka let's just use trout as an example. And you need to categorize those boxes into separate things. And what you need to do is go through those and purge all the stuff that you know you're not going to use. A fishing lure that you're like, yeah, I might use that one time out on the water, maybe on that one day. You probably end up not using it. It's probably going to end up broken in the back of your tackle box, or it's going to end up taking up space that could be used for something else. It's time to let it go and move on and keep the gear that you need in stock, on ready to go. Categorize and purge. Categorize your gear into different tackle boxes to fit that certain need and purge the rest. You can do it. I believe in you. Tip number 5. One constant in all of my gear, in each one of these bags, there's at least one version of what I call the terminal tackle box, right? So in my trout box, you kind of already saw that. Weights, swivels, and hooks, right? They're all in these kind of tackle boxes. These two anyway. I'd say out of all of my tackle boxes, my trout box gets the least amount of love because I don't spend a lot of time going through all that gear, and there's so many different little things, which needs to get a little bit more organized. The best version of that terminal tackle box that I have is actually in my bass bag. And that is this guy right here. So these are the Plano Edge boxes, and I have a whole nother video I'm going to be doing about those because I own about every single version of this except for the last one that they just came out with, which was the frog box, which I'm definitely not going to use. But either way, these terminal tackle boxes, if you look in here, right, you open this thing up, I've got stuff that I have that's kind of my quick and easy access. I've got bobber stops here, I've got J hooks here, I've got smaller drop shot hooks here, I've got jig hooks here, I've got swim bait hooks here, weights here, and they're all in these kind of smaller containers that are easily taken out, and you can open up, get what you need, or you don't even have to take them out of this. You can open them up straight out of this thing. They're all in smaller containers to kind of keep everything in one place. These terminal tackle boxes is probably the biggest tip of this whole video, is because in every fishing that you do, there's one constant, is you're always going to have gear that you're going to need that's round the clock. Your weights, your swivels, your hooks, things like that. Any other things that you can think of, every different type of weight or hook or version of a weight hook can kind of go in your terminal tackle box and be used on a constant. And this is kind of more or less something that you're going to want to keep quick and easy to access more than any other tackle that you have. The terminal tackle boxes. That's tip number 5. That's probably the best tip I got when it comes to storing tackle anyway. Side note, I do, however, own like multiple different things for storing just hooks, like leadered hooks. And honestly, every one of them has a flaw. And I cannot figure out a great way of holstering just weighted hooks. The most recent one that I've come across that I actually find out to be the most useful one that I have is actually what's called this leader feeder line. So leader feeder is these little tackle boxes here, and they look kind of funky, but in here I've got all these hooks with leader on them already ready to go, and all I got to do out of these things is take the hook, pull it straight out, and now I have leader hook ready to go. Tie my loop on, get my bait on it, put it out on the hook or in the water, and away I go. Probably the best version that I've come across. However, these do have a flaw. I've got this one here, which was kind of, I think they're Gen Vert 1. They're one of their kind of first series that they had. That this thing primarily just stays in my salmon box. Keeps all my hooks for when I do bobber dogging and stuff like that. This is kind of their, I'd say more or less their steelhead version of these leader feeder rods or lines. And they have like this cork board that kind of goes on them that you can put all your stuff on them. A little bit better for holding the hooks and where they need to go. I personally like tying all my own hooks and leaders, so with like high-end Kamagatsu hooks. I am a huge fan of Kamagatsu if you haven't figured that out yet. But that's why I use a lot of these, and that's why I like storing them. The other version that I had before that was these things here, and I hate these things. They look good on paper, right? You got all your hooks in there. They're all kind of staying where they need to, but man alive, are they hard to get out of this thing, because the whole idea between this is the line stays out on here. You put this lid on, right? You find where it lies, and then you twist it, and it twists the line up, and it stays on the outer ring of this. They get twisted up so often, and you can't ever pull them out without making a huge mess, or you end up snapping something. They just never work out right for the way I want them to do. Now, going back to these, the flaw of these things, they have this bottom section here that you use, and you kind of interweave your leader down in through here. It means you can have them as long as you want. And then you use these kind of hairband things to hold them into place. Man alive, are they hard to get to stay in there and get those hairbands on there in some sort of fashion. You have to do it on a table with both hands, and it's a pain. It's a pain to do. So that's the downside with these. And they're open all the time. I wish this one or that version there is okay, but they're kind of awkward to use. But this one here, I wish there was something to cover this up, because even if I get those leaders down in there, I'm not getting them very tight. These become loose, and they're just kind of flopping all over the place. So, leader feeder, hook me up, man. I like your stuff, but we got some things to work on. Maybe I'm not putting them in there correctly, but there's also, to my point, or to my fairness anyway, there's never in any one of those that I bought in any instructions on how to get them in there in the way that they recommend. So I just kind of figured it out, I think, through my own ingenuity. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. Anyway, side note. One more little bonus tip, and I'm getting really sidetracked at this point, so we're going to stop here. But the last one I have is these little things here that you see in your store. If you're first time fishing, maybe this is great because you don't have any weights, so this is a great variety pack to get. However, buy one to start, but then try and steer away from these once you kind of figure out what you like to use or which ones that you use the most. Because these, however, if you keep buying these, you'll end up finding out they'll come with a bunch of stuff they'll end up not ever using. And then we get back to that point of organizing your tackle and making the purge of the stuff you don't need. I'll probably never end up using all these smaller ones. And I'll probably never use these gigantic egg loop or these egg weights. I don't really fish for, well, no, I'm not gonna fish for catfish. I might fish for catfish, so I might keep those. But anyway, there's two. There's only two. Oh no, make the purge. Make the purge. All right, if you made it this far into the video, I definitely appreciate it. If you like this kind of content, or if you want some more tips, or if you have any tips for me, I would love to hear them down in the comments, and I would definitely try and make some sort of video of me trying to learn how to do something like that. I am, however, going to go through much more of my tackle and kind of show guys the way I do things and some of the things that I've come across. And if you're looking at buying a tackle and I already have it, I'll give you all my pros and cons of each one. So appreciate it. Stay fishy, guys.